Yeah, good afternoon, one and all. Present topic will be the session topic will be multi-level inverter fed PMSM drive for electric vehicle application. So these are the contents I'll try to cover in this 2 hours lecture. So introduction and director control of induction motor drive or PMSM drive, director control with space vector modulation, and in the director control method with the space vector modulation using two-level inverter, using three-level inverter, and using five-level inverter. Also, will discuss. Depends upon the time. We will also try to cover the fuzzy logic control based how we are using the fuzzy logic controller and why we are going for the fuzzy logic controller. Also, we will discuss. And again, we have another session on 29th. There we will show you the hardware demonstration with DSpace controller based on these topics. So today we will discuss theoretical, and on the 29th we will show you the hands-on session on this particular topics. So as you know, all we electrical engineers know the classifications of electric motors. The electric motors are classified into two types based on the supply availability. So we have two kind of supplies. One is the AC supply and another one is the DC supply. The based on the supply, the motors are categorized into two types: DC motor and the AC motors. So AC motors are further classified into two types: the synchronous motor and the synchronous motor. So in the asynchronous motor, it is an induction motor, and in the induction motor, slipping and the squirrel cage. The synchronous motors are classified into various types. Those are the reluctance motors, wound field motors, and the permanent magnet motors, hysteresis motors, and the stepper motors. So now presently we have considered the permanent magnet synchronous motors. So the permanent magnets further classified into brushless DC motor and the permanent magnets synchronous motor. So basically, nowadays, in recent years, permanent magnet synchronous motors usage has been increased tremendously in the field of electric drives and the electric transportation. Because of the reason is their peculiar advantage over the other motors. So the we know the well known disadvantage of the DC motors. So like brushes required and commutators. So we know the disadvantage of the DC motor. So people are converting into the AC motors. So and over the induction motor, the PMSM motor having a more advantage. And the PMSM is chosen as a preferable motor in many of the speed control application because of its low starting currents, reduced dynamics, and also better steady state performance compared to the induction motor. But however, there is a problem in the control of PMSM motor. So compared to the DC machine, due to the presence of the coupling between torque and the flux components. So this is the main reason why the PMSM motors or AC motors are not used in the variable speed applications before the 1980s. So thanks to the advanced control strategies techniques like vector control methods, with this advanced techniques or control methods, we can able to operate induction motors or the PMSM motors similar to the DC motor that we will see in upcoming slides. So the motor and electric drive system, how the AC motors are, how the DC motors are replaced with the AC motor over the years. So before 1980s, the 40% of the industries were using DC motors. Before 1990, there was more than the 40% they were using DC motor in the industrial applications. And the 1995, around 30% of the industries are using all DC motors, but the 70% of the industries are using AC motors. So by the year of 2000, so 75% of the industries are using AC machines, and by the year of 2005, 80% of the industries are using AC machines over the DC machines. By 2021, around 90 to 95% of the industries are using AC motors, and the most of the DC motors are replaced with the AC motors. So here, if you see the variable speed classification of the variable speed applications, so here variable speed drives are classified into two types. One is the scalar control, another one is the vector control. So why people are going for the vector control when we are having a scalar control method? In the scalar control method, we can able to control the voltage, current, and the flux, but we cannot able to control the instantaneous position. So we cannot control the instantaneous positions of their vectors. So here in the vector control, we can able not only control the voltage, current, and the flux, we can also able to control their instantaneous positions. So that's why the vector controls are very famous compared to the scalar control methods. So in the vector control method, it is further classified into two types. So here initially implemented the field oriented control method. So basically the field oriented control method also called it as a vector control method. So in the field oriented control method, so here the field-oriented control methods further classified into two types. One is the direct field-oriented control method and indirect field-oriented control method. So how we are calculating the orientation angle. So depends upon the calculation of the orientation angle. The field-oriented control method is classified into two types. One is the direct field-oriented control. Another one is the indirect field-oriented control. It means the orientation angle is calculated indirectly. Here we can calculate the orientation angle theta directly in the field oriented control method. So why the industries are going for the industries and researchers are going for the direct torque control method when we are having a field oriented control method? The reason behind is in the field oriented control method there are certain drawbacks. Those drawbacks are, so first one is the system complexity. How the system is complex. So here we required a two Fock transformation to clock transformation. It means one Fock transformation, another one is the inverse Fock transformation, and one clock transformation, and another one is the inverse clock transformation. In addition to the coordinate transformation, we also need a three controllers like PI controllers or any controllers. So here we need a three controllers. At the same time, we also need a PWM signal generator in the field oriented control method. So we need a coordinate transformation, we need a outer current controller and the inner current controllers. Outer current controllers called generally a speed controller, and the inners are current controllers. One is for the d-axis purpose, and that is torque controlling purpose, and another one is for the flux controlling purpose. So two controllers are required. Those are the inner current controllers. In addition to that, we need a PWM generators also. So all together, it makes the system complex. Not only the complex, there is a parameter dependency also. Suppose if you operate a AC machine more than 1 hour, or depends upon industries used to operate throughout the day, throughout the year they use it to operate. When we are operating any machine throughout the day, then there is a resistance effect, means the parameter varies. So there is a parameter sensitivity also there in the field oriented control method. So with these all drawbacks, people are going to reduce these drawbacks with the direct torque and flux control method. So here we don't require any in not we cannot say any, but we don't require this many coordinate transformation, and we don't require two inner current controllers. At the same time, we don't require any PWM generator in the direct torque control method. So here the direct torque control method further classified into direct self control. Another one is the direct torque and flux control with the space vector modulation. Why people are going for, again DTC with space vector modulation instead of DTFC? So that we will see in the upcoming slides. So here, as I said, scalar controller and the vector controller. This is the phasor diagram of the scalar controller. As you see here, we can able to control the magnitude of the flux, current, and the voltage, but we cannot control its instantaneous positions. But whereas in the vector control method, we can also control the instantaneous position. So thanks to the vector control method. So here with the help of the vector control method, we can able to operate AC machine similar to the separately excited DC motor. Why we are talking about the separately excited DC motor, and why we are comparing with induction machine? So there is a one reason behind it. So here basically the beauty of the separately excited DC motor is that if you apply here separate supply the VDC, when we are applying separate supply of VDC to the armature, it drives the current of armature current. So here we will able to apply the separate DC supply to the field winding. So here when we are applying a separate supply of VDC, it drives the current of IF. So here when we are providing a VDC, it drives the current of IF. When the IF flows in the field winding, then it produces the uniform magnetic field. It produces the uniform magnetic field. At the same time, when we are the separate supply is provided to the armature, that is VDC here, and it drives the armature current. So as we know, whenever a current carrying conductor placed in a uniform magnetic field, it experiences the force. So likewise, the torque is produced here. So here, what is the advantage here? The advantage is that by making the field winding voltage, that is VDC, by making this VDC is constant, we can make the IF is constant. By making IF constant, we can make this field winding constant. Now here, by varying this VDC, we can vary the armature current. By varying this armature current, we can change the torque. It means we can control the torque independently from the flux. So here we can control the IA and the IF independently. Both are decoupled. So here, this is the beauty of the separately excited DC motor. We can control the IF independently from the IA. So the same mechanism we can get from the vector control when we are using induction motor. So induction motor with the vector control method, or PMSM motor with vector control method. So this is that block diagram. So when we are using the vector control method, so we can able to get the electromagnetic torque expression T is equal to K dash IQS and the IDS. So this here IQS is similar to the armature current and the IDS is similar to the field current. So here you can see the phasor diagram of the DC separately excited DC motor and the phasor diagram of the induction motor with vector control method. So when you use the vector control technique for the induction motor drive, we can able to operate induction motor similar to the separately excited DC motor. So this is the beauty of the vector control. So here how the concepts mechanism happening in the vector control method. So here, okay, so here you can see the principle of how the vector control method is operating here. So basically, this is the position of the inverter. From the inverter, by using the three current sensor, we can be able to sense the IA, IB, and the IC. So by sensing these three currents, we are transforming these three stationary currents into the stationary two-phase current, that is IDS and the IQS in the stationary reference frame. So by using the clock transformation, we can transform the three-phase currents into the two-phase currents. So here we will use the Park transformation. By using the Park transformation, the stationary IDS current and the IQS current can be transformed into the AC quantities are transformed into the DC quantities. We can call like it into the rotating. This is the stationary reference frame, and now we are transforming into the synchronously rotating reference frame with the help of the Park transformation. So we will get the IDS and the IQS in a synchronously rotating reference frame manner. So here this side we will have a one PI controller. Here another PI controller, that is the two current controllers we will have. So here IDS and IQS will be compared here, and the error will be fed to this PI controller. And similarly, IQS and here reference IQS will be compared, and the error will be fed to the other PI controller. So here we will have a IDS and the IQS in a synchronously rotating reference frame manner, and this synchronously rotating reference frame is being converted into the stationary reference frame by using the inverse Park transformation. Now the stationary reference frame IDS and IQS will be transformed into the stationary reference frame from two-phase quantities into the three-phase quantities. So here we will use the inverse clock transformation. So by using the inverse clock transformation, we can get the three-phase currents. So this three-phase reference current, if you compare with the actual current, we can generate the pulses. So those pulses can be provided to the inverter. So if you see the phasor diagram of clock transformation. This is the clock transformation, and this is the Buck transformation. So d axis and q axis are rotating with the speed of synchronously rotating reference frame, but here it is in the stationary reference frame manner. So here, this is the torque equation when we are using the vector control method in the AC machines. So here T is equal 3 by 2 P by 2 psi s multiply with is, or we can write this psi s in terms of the rotor flux. So here the rotor flux can be written T is equal 3 by 2 P by 2 Lm by Lr psi r multiply with is. So this says that if you make this equation says that if you make the angle between psi s and is to be 90 degrees, if you can able to make the angle between the psi s and is 90 degree, then your machine can be operate like a DC motor. So if you can able to make the 90 degrees between the psi s and the is, then your AC machines can be operated like a separately excited DC motor. So here we are having two ways of implementing the field oriented control method. Those two ways are, that is based on the state of flux, yeah, rotor flux. Whether state of flux is rotating in the reference frame manner, yeah, rotor flux in the form of rotating reference frame manner. So there are two ways. So here there are two ways. One is the psi r and the another one is the psi s. So that is psi r we can call it as a rotor flux orientation control, and the psi s we can call it as a state of flux orientation control method. So here what we are doing in the rotor flux orientation control method. So here d power s and the q power s, when we are transforming three-phase quantities to the two-phase quantities by using the clock transformation. So this is the d axis and the q axis in the stationary reference frame manner, and this is the rotor flux linkage, and this is the state of flux. So now what we are doing here in the rotor flux orientation control, so this d power psi r represent the this d axis is rotating with the speed of synchronously rotating reference frame, and this is the also rotating with the speed of synchronous speed. So now here d axis is aligned, or we can call it as a psi r is aligned with the d axis. Here psi r is aligned with the d axis, and now if I take the current is from the is, if you see the radial component, this is the radial component of is, then this will give you the ids in the which is rotating synchronously rotating manner, and tangential component will give you the iqs in a rotating reference frame manner. So here if you can write the torque equation, T is equal 3 by 2 P by 2 Lm by Lr of psi rd or psi dr, isq is minus psi qr ids. So similarly, if you see the state of flux orientation control method, so here instead of the psi r, we will take it as a psi s. So now again the three-phase quantities are transformed into the two-phase quantities. So we will get the, basically it will represent with the alpha and beta. So here we represented with the d and q power s. So it represents the clock transformation. So here the similar procedure will be done, but here instead of the psi r, here we will take the state of flux orientation control. So from the is, if you see the radial component and tangential component, we will get the ids and the iqs, the state of flux which is rotating synchronous speed, and this will be the equation. So now here this psi r is aligned with the d axis, so it is rotating with the speed of synchronous speed, and when the psi r is aligned with the d axis, we can get the psi dr is equal to the resultant of psi r. And what about the psi qr? The psi qr will be the 0, because the psi r is aligned with the d axis. Now if you can substitute this one this phenomena into the equation, this torque equation, then this term will get the 0. So here we will not get this part, so this part will be 0. So this is the torque equation. T is equal 3 by 2 P by 2 Lm by Lr psi dr and iqs. So here from this phasor diagram, we are getting two currents. One current is the ids, another current will be the iqs. So this ids represent the field producing component, and the iqs produces the torque producing component. So if you see these two equations and this sixth equation, so it represent ids and iqs are similar to ia and if, so which is there in the separately excited dc motor. So here we are getting the decoupling control of torque and flux with the help of the vector control method. So here, as I said in the previous second slide, there are two types of field oriented control method. So how we are classifying two types. So here basically psi r rotate with the speed of the synchronous speed, and here d power psi r and the q power psi r also rotate with the speed of synchronous speed, and we can get the theta. Theta is equal to integral of omega s dt, omega s and dt. So here how we are here this theta we need to obtain every instant of time. So how we are able to control this theta classified into two types. So those two types are how we are controlling this theta, that is, or how we are calculating this theta, that reflect two types. One is the indirect rotaflux orientation control, and another one is the direct rotaflux orientation control. So here in case of the indirect field oriented control method, so this theta will be calculated indirectly by using the slip speed. So we will calculate the estimate or calculate the slip speed by using this equation omega SL is equal to IQS by tau r IDS. By using this omega SL, and this will be the omega r we are measuring electrical from the encoder. So from the encoder, we will get the mechanical speed, and which will be converted into the electrical speed by making P by 2. So here we will get the electrical speed. The electrical speed is added to the slip speed, then we will get the actual speed, that is the omega s. So this way, this is the way we use it to call it as a indirect rotaflux orientation control method. And the direct rotaflux orientation control method is that, so no need of this omega SL. So here the direct rotaflux orientation control method can be done in two ways. The one way is basically theta can be calculated. Theta is equal to tan inverse of psi qs by psi ds. Psi ds. So here, if you can able to psi qs by psi ds, so if you can able to sense or measure the psi qs and the psi ds directly, then we can calculate the theta, that is instantaneous position can be calculated or estimated directly. How we can measure this psi qs and psi ds? So we can measure this psi ds and psi qs by inserting two flux sensors orthogonally with a degree of 90 degrees. So if you can able to keep the two flux sensors inside the motor, so with a phase difference of 90 degrees, so we can measure the psi qs and the psi ds. So that psi ds and psi qs we can measure, and we can calculate the theta. So this method we will not suggest, because while running the motor will vibrate a lot. When the motor is vibrating, there is a chance of falling those flux sensor on rotor, and it damages the motor. So this method is not much advisable. So that's why people are suggesting another method. That method is, so instead of measuring the flux, we will measure the phase voltages and the current. We will measure the voltage and current. By measuring the voltage and current, we will estimate the flux. The psi s is equal to integral of VDS minus IDS RS. So this is the psi ds. So here psi ds is equal to integral of VDS minus IDS RS of dt. So here by measuring the VDS and the IDS, by using two voltage sensor and two current sensor, we can calculate the third voltage, like VA plus VB plus VC is equal to 0. So if you can able to sense two voltages, the third voltage can be calculated. So no need of third voltage sensor. So there we can reduce the cost of the experimentation. Similarly, two current sensor, by using two current sensor, we can sense the third current, and thereby by using the clock transformation, we can get the VDS and the IDS. By getting the VDS and IDS, we can calculate the psi ds. By calculating psi ds and psi qs, we can estimate the theta. So this is the second method. So in the direct rotaflux orientation control method, this method is we can suggest. So this is the block diagram of the indirect rotaflux orientation control method. So here this is the portion of the stationary reference frame, and this is the portion of the rotating in a rotor flux rotating frame, synchronously rotating. So here you can see this is the clock transformation, and this is the Park transformation, and this is the inverse Park transformation, and this is the inverse clock transformation. At the same time, here we need two current controllers. One is the IDS, and the another purpose is the VQS. One is the VDS and another one is the VQS. There are two current controllers are required, and another current controller, this is the outer loop control we call generally. So this is the speed control purpose, and these two are yellow one are current control purpose. At the same time, as I said earlier, so we need a PWM generator also. So all together makes this circuit is somewhat complex. And I said there are two ways, that is indirect rotor flux and direct. So what is the indirect? So this is the portion of the indirect one. So this is the portion of the indirect rotor flux orientation control. So here we are calculating the slip speed, and this is added with the rotor speed. So here by using the encoder, we are measuring the mechanical speed, and which is converted into the electrical speed, and which is added to the slip speed, and by making the integration we can get the orientation angle psi qr, theta psi r. So these are the simple formulas how we are converting the two phase to three phase and three phase to two phase and the stationary to rotating reference frame. And this is the another method, that it method circuit diagram, that is rotor flux orientation control method. And this is the portion of the stationary form, and this is the portion of the rotating reference frame manner. And what is the difference from the previous diagram? So this is the difference. So here we are measuring the VDS and the VQS. This VDS and VQS are we are measuring, and by measuring this VDS and VQS, we can calculate the psi ds and the psi qs. As I said earlier, psi qs is equal to integral of VQS minus psi qs rs. So we can calculate this psi ds and psi qs. At the same time, here it is transformed. No, this equation is not required. So here making the inverse transformation, inverse tan, so we can get the theta. So this is the second method, as I said, by making inserting the flux sensor inside. So here two flux sensors are inserted inside. So but this method is not suitable and not recommended much. And this is a method, and this is the rotor flux orientation control method. We are operating below rated speed. So we can operate until the rated speed or below rated speed, we can say. So because here we are not using any field weakening region, so we are maintaining the flux as a constant. So here we are taking the flux always constant. So if you want to operate above rated speed, any machine above rated speed, then we need to use the field weakening region. So here we need to reduce the flux. So by making this lookup table here, by making the lookup table, for example, for the 1500 rpm, we will have a this much flux. Then what will be the flux for the 1600 rpm? Then flux need to be calculated. Then here we will create the lookup table. By using the field weakening region, we can operate the machine above rated speed also. So this is the method with the field weakening region. So this part will be the same as the previous slide, but here only it will change here only. As I said earlier, so here the reference speed here from the encoder, the speed will be measured. Sorry, this is the reference speed. This is the reference speed we will give. So based on the, as I said, 1500 rpm, this will be the flux, and the 1600 rpm, this will be the this much will be the flux. Like that, we will calculate, and here we will create the lookup table. And this is the diagram. Both the indirect and direct is given in the same slide. So in order to show the difference, what is the difference of this is the indirect one and this is the direct one. So here direct torque and flux control method, why people are going for the direct torque control method instead of the field oriented control method? So I said that this is the drawback of field oriented control method, and the PWM required, and coordinate transformations are required. At the same time, PI controllers are required. So this is the original complexity of the circuit. At the same time, there is a parameter sensitivity also. So that's why people are going for the direct torque control method. So here in the direct torque control method, this is the schematic diagram of the direct torque and flux control method. So here you can see the individual blocks. So this is the flux hysteresis controller, and this is the torque hysteresis controller. So here 2 level of flux hysteresis controller, and here we have taken the 3 level of torque hysteresis controller, and this is the voltage vector selection table. So here we will create the lookup table. So this lookup table I will explain later on. So here we need a lookup table, and this is the inverter, voltage source inverter, and this will be the drive machine PMSM motor or induction motor. And by using the encoder here, we are measuring the speed, and which is fed to the here, and this is actual speed, and compared with the reference speed, the error speed is fed to the outer PI controller. So here we need only a single PI controller. We don't require any current controller in the like field oriented control method. So here we need only one PI controller. At the same time, you see here we don't require any PWM generator also. So there is no PWM block here in this diagram. At the same time, I said some papers says that we don't require any coordinate transformations like Clark and Park transformation, but here we need one Clark transformation. So here we need a one Clark transformation, and this psi s is estimated, and the theta is estimated, and t is estimated by using these simple formulas. So how basically the direct torque and flux control method is implemented, and what is the advantage of that one, we will see here. Basically the stator flux linkage is given by the integral of difference between the state of voltage and the voltage drop. So here psi s is equal to integral of Vs minus Is Rs. So this is the ISRS of the winding drop, winding resistance drop. So for a smaller interval of time, if you neglect this winding voltage, winding resistance drop, then the applied voltage, this equation can be written like this one: Vs is equal to change in d psi s by dt. The applied voltage is directly excite the stator flux. So here psi s or we can write in another manner: the change in psi s is equal to Vs. So this Vs is the voltage vector. So how depends upon the voltage vector selection, directly it applies on the inverter. Suppose we have selected V1, then we will have a 1 0 0. V1 vector will be the 0 0. So in inverter we have, for example, we have 2 level inverter. In the 2 level inverter we have two switches. One means the first leg of the 2 level inverter, then we will have a 3 legs. The one means the first leg of the upper switch will be on, and the remaining 2 leg lower switches will be on. So likewise, if you select the voltage vector V1 here, so if you select the voltage vector V1, it directly excites the stator flux. Similarly, if you select the voltage vector V2, then V2 will be the 110. So here we don't require any PWM controllers. Depends upon the voltage vector selection, there is a directly exit on the stator flux. So we have a electromagnetic torque equation: T is equal to 3 by 2 P by 2 Lm by sigma Ls Lr modulus psi r and the psi s sine gamma. So now how the torque is changing, we will see. So coming to the phasor diagram, so here as I said, we need a one Clark transformation. So by using the Clark transformation, the three phase currents or three phase voltages are transformed into the two phase currents. So here we will have D axis and the Q axis, which is in a Clark transformation. Generally people used to mention in some paper alpha and beta, but here we have taken the notation like D and Q. So here D axis and Q axis in the reference frame manner. So here stationary reference frame. Here this is the psi s, state of flux linkage, and this will be the psi r, and this will be the magnitude of the vector magnet current, that is Is. So now as we know, this psi r always lags behind the psi s. So here what we are doing, so we know the equations, change in psi s is equal to Vs and delta t, that is time. So here for a smaller interval of time, I am talking for a smaller interval of time, we have selected particular vector, that is we have selected particular vector. For example, this will be the V1, and this will be the V2, So there are 8 vectors, 2 are active vectors and 2 are null vectors and 6 are active vectors. V1 to V6 are active vectors and V0, V7 is the null vector. So for a smaller interval of time, I have selected the voltage vector of V3. I have selected the voltage vector of V3. So now when we selected the voltage vector V3 here, so what is the position of the state of flux and what is the position of the root of flux? So now when we have selected the voltage vector V3, now it directly excites the state of flux, and now the state of flux new position become, this is the new position. So now the state of flux, if you see the radial component of Vs, so this is the radial component. So from this point, this much vector, this much magnitude is increase of the flux. So the new position of the state of flux is psi s plus change in psi s. Now why we are not considering this psi s, or why this psi r is not changing? Because we are taking a smaller interval of time. We have taken here a very small time. In that particular small time, we have changed the voltage vector. In that small time, the psi r will not change, because the psi r having the root of flux having the large time constant. So it will take some time to change. So we are taking a very small time, so we are assuming that the psi r will be in a same position, it is not changing. Now when we are selecting voltage vector V3, so here the flux position will be psi s plus change in psi s. Then what about the torque? The torque is, here we know that T is equal to sine of gamma. The earlier angle will be psi s and psi r. Earlier angle is the gamma, but now the angle, new angle will be increased. So when the angle is increased, then this value will be increases. It directly proportional to torque. It means when we are selecting V3, there is a variation in the torque. So there is a direct influence on the torque, depends upon the voltage vector. Similarly, if you select the V2 and V1, there is a variation in the torque. Whether it is increasing or decreasing, it depends upon the, if you draw the diagram, then it will be clearly visible. That slide we can see later on. So it means here depends upon the voltage vector selection, there is a direct influence on the state of flux, at the same time electromagnetic torque. So this is the way we are directly calculating the torque and the flux by selecting the voltage vector. That's why the name also called it as a direct torque and flux control method. So here we have used initially a 2-level inverter. So this is a 2-level inverter, depends upon the voltage vector selection. So here this diagram and this diagram both are same. So here depends upon the voltage vector selection. You can see that there are switches are changing here. So here how we are creating the lookup table. So there is a certain there is a procedure how to create the lookup table. So that procedure we will see here. Same what we have seen in the phasor diagram, the same thing we will see again in a little bit clarified way. This is the 360-degree circle we have, and there are 6 sectors. Each sector is phase displaced by 60 degrees. So this is the position of 1, and this is the 2, and this is the 3. There are 6 sectors. So now we are using the 2-level inverter. So there are 8 vectors, and 6 are active and 2 are null vectors. In every sector, we are having a 8 voltage vectors. So in every sector we will have a 8 vectors. Depends upon the voltage vector selection in the sector 1 and the sector 2, the influence on the flux and the torque is varies. So how it varies we will see. So the variation of the flux and torque cannot be same in the sector 1 and the sector 2. So it depends upon the phasor diagram you can see here. So for example, we have taken the sector 1. In the sector 1, we have taken again in the sector 1 we have a 6 active vectors. So depends upon the 6 active vectors selections, there is a different state of flux influence and the torque influence also. So for example, here we have taken the voltage vector V2. So this is the position of the state of flux, and this is the green line shows the position of the root of flux. Now for the smaller interval of time, we have changed the state of flux from this point to this point. this point to this point. Now see the yellow line, the tangent of the V2 and the tangent radial of the V2 and the tangential component of the V2. So now this is the position of the radial component. So now earlier magnitude of the flux is, this is the magnitude. Now it is increased to this value. It means psi s plus change in psi s. It means what it means, the magnitude is increased is vector V2 in a sector 1. Similarly, the torque variation. So now you see the torque. Now this is the position of the psi s. It is changed to this value, and earlier the torque angle will be between the psi s and psi r this much. Now the new angle will be increased. Now when it is increased, it says from the equation torque also increasing. So in the sector 1, if you select the voltage vector V2, then there is a variation in the state of flux and the torque. Is it same when we are selecting V3? We will see that one. So now in the sector 1, we have selected voltage vector V3. So what is happening on the what is the influence on the flux and the torque, we will see. So here this is the earlier magnitude of the state of flux. So when we have applied the voltage vector V3, then this is the new position of the state of flux. So see the magnitude, now magnitude is coming backward. So the magnitude is reduced, the state of flux magnitude is reduced. But whatever when it is reduced means the state of flux will be reduced. At the same time, see the angle between the psi s and the psi r, the angle is increased. Angle is increased. The state of flux magnitude is decreasing, but the torque angle is increasing. So when here when we are selecting V3, state of flux reduces but torque increases. Similarly, when we are selecting sector 1 of V5 vector, so when we are selecting V5 vector, both, so see here, flux also reducing and the torque also reducing. This is the earlier angle, now this is a new angle. Both torque and flux are decreasing. Similarly, when we are selecting V6 sector 1 of V6, so this is the way we will create the lookup table, and this is the lookup table, and in the MATLAB, by using the MATLAB functions, we will create the lookup table based on the information receiving from the angle. So for example, we are having in the 6th sector, depends upon the angle, that sector will be decided. So when the output of the flux hysteresis controller is 1 and the torque hysteresis controller also 1, and the angle is in a 6th sector, if you select the voltage vector V2, then both flux and torque increases. Similarly, if you select if your output of the flux hysteresis controller is 1, torque hysteresis controller is 0 in the sector 1, then your this will be the, you will get the V7. So likewise, we have created a lookup table in the MATLAB. So this is the way direct torque and flux control method works on the this optimal lookup voltage vector selection. So this is, you can see the trajectory, flux trajectory. So depends upon the voltage vector selection. Here switches are changing, and the same thing is following here. The flux trajectory is following here. So here we have simulated direct torque and flux control fed PMSM drive in MATLAB Simulink. We have not written the program, we have used the MATLAB Simulink. So this is the MATLAB Simulink diagram, and here we have used the PMSM motor. There are two ways. One way is by we can take the PMSM model directly, which is available in the MATLAB library. So another way is by using the mathematical equation, the modeling equation, we can model our PMSM motor or induction motor ourselves by using the mathematical equation. So we have followed this way. We have not taken this one, the existing model in the MATLAB Simulink. Why? Because we don't know what is happening inside. So when we are changing the torque, or when we are changing the flux, or when we are changing the reference speed, what is happening inside? So we don't know, we cannot see inside what is happening exactly. So if you can design your PMSM motor by using the modeling equation, we can see everything by using the scope. So these are the mathematical equation of the PMSM motor modeling in a rotating reference frame manner. This is the equivalent circuit diagram in the q axis and the d axis. And this is the torque equation. So this is the torque equation we have. So T is equal 3 by 2 NP. This is number of poles of psi f field flux plus LD minus LQ of ID over half of IQ. So here this equation depends upon the torque equation. There are two types. Basically, in the PMSM motor, there are two types. One is the interior type permanent magnet, and another one is the surface mounted permanent magnet synchronous motor. So this equation, when LD is not equal to LQ, we will follow this equation. So that is we are using this torque equation for the interior type permanent magnet synchronous motor. For in case of the surface mounted PMSM motor, the torque equation will be here in the surface mounted LD is equal to LQ is equal to LS. So this fellow will be 0. So when this fellow is 0, we will have a T is equal 3 by 2 NP of psi f multiply with IQ. So this is the we have simulated ourselves by using the mathematical equation. And here electrical port modeling. So we know the torque equation. So this is the torque equation we have simulated. We know the LD and the ID and IQ expressions. We are by taking the input and output. We have designed by using this mathematical equation. And this is a mechanical port modeling. So here T minus TL minus F omega r is equal to J times d by dt of omega r. So this is modeled here. And here we need adaptive model also. So that is the estimation of psi s and the estimation of torque and the estimation of the theta. So we can estimate psi s, T and the theta by using these three equations. So those three equation is simulated here. So we can simulate easily by using this equation. And here, as I said in the circuit diagram, we need one one speed controller. So in the speed controller, we have taken a PI controller. So here, when we are taking a PI controller, we need to know the KPKI values also, the KPKI gain values. So here the KPKI gain values have tuned using the root locus method. So by using the root locus method, we have found transfer function. By using the transfer function, we got the Kp value is 1.75 and this is integral time constant of Ki is equal to 0.0593. So here the lookup table, this is the hysteresis block controller and this is the PI controller which we have used in the Simulink. And this is the how we have created this optimal voltage vector selection here. So here by using the lookup table, we created this logic here, and from this logic we will get the depends upon the output of the flux hysteresis controller and depends upon the output of the torque hysteresis controller and the angle calculation. We will get the three outputs. From these three output, based on these three output, these voltage vectors are selected. So in the two level we have 8 vectors. Those 8 vectors are given here. So based on the output we are receiving from the flux hysteresis controller and torque hysteresis controller and the angle estimated, this voltage vector will be selected. Based on triggering this voltage vector, we will get the V1 or V2. If it is V1, then that is equal to 1 0 0. So 3 pulses we got, but basically we need 6 pulses. So in order to get the remaining 3 pulses, we will make here a NOT gate. By using the NOT gate, remaining 3 pulses also we can get. Thereby we don't require any PWM generator when we are using for the DTC method. So this is a 2-level voltage source inverter, and these are the results we have obtained from the DTC based PMSM motor. And we have operated a PMSM motor at 1500 RPM with the direct torque control method, but found lots of little bit high errors here. So because we are getting this error, I will tell you little bit later on. So meanwhile, remember this, here we will get the little bit more error at the same time in the torque, and it will take a little more time to settle the reference speed. So we have set given the 1500 RPM, but there is a overshoot here. So it takes some time to settle the reference speed. And we are nowadays we are using the PMSM motors for the electric vehicle applications because of its advantages. So suppose if you are using the PMSM motors for the electric vehicles, we need to test that motor at every speed, from taking from 0 speed to rated speed also, if possible more than rated speed also. But there is a again problem when we are going for the more than rated speed. We will see that one. So here we have tested the simulation in reversal speed. At the same time, we have tested the PMSM motor by applying a various speed from 800 to 600 to 800, 800 to 900, like that we have applied. So this is the simulation result with the DTC method. So now we will see the another advanced technique, that is the DTFC with space vector modulation. Now why people are going for the SVM method with the DTC method, DTC? Why people are going means, so here basically in the direct torque and flux control method, we are using flux hysteresis and torque hysteresis controller. So when we are using the hysteresis controller, we will not get the constant switching frequency. So when we are using the hysteresis controller, we will get the variable switching frequency. With the because of the variable switching frequency, there is a huge ripple content we are getting in the torque. So we need to reduce this ripple contents. So to reduce this ripple content, we are using the space vector modulation. So you can see the simulation result with the DTC method and the DTC with SVM method. So here you can see the switching frequency, and here there is a variable switching frequency you can get in the pulses. But here you see all pulses are same. So we will get the constant switching frequency when we are using DTFC with space vector modulation. So this is the schematic diagram of the DTC with space vector modulation. Sorry for the interruption. So here you can see this diagram. So here in this diagram, see this portion. This portion is similar to the direct torque control method. The diagram which we have seen in the direct torque control method. Now see this portion. This portion you have seen somewhere else in the field oriented control method. There we have used one outer PI controller, we have used the inner PI controller, two inner PI controller, and we have used the inverse Park transformation. At the same time, we have used the PWM generator. So the thing is here, by using the DTFC with the space vector modulation, we will obtain or we will get the advantage of direct torque control method, at the same time the field oriented control method in the DTFC with space vector modulation. We can get the advantage of which we are getting from the FOC and the DTC here. So here here we need to calculate, we need to design the space vector modulation. How we will design the space vector modulation basically? So here this is the space vector modulation diagram. So here in the space vector algorithm is easy to estimate the reference voltage vector basically. So here we need to estimate the reference voltage vector. So here in order to realize this reference voltage vector, basically we need a nearby 3 voltage vectors. So what are those three nearby 3 voltage vectors? The two are the active vectors, and another one is the null vectors. So in order to realize the reference voltage vector, we need to know, or we need a nearby 3 voltage vectors. Among it, 2 active vector, 1 null vector is required. So for 2-level inverter, we will have 6 sectors, and in every sector we will have only one region. So how we will calculate the regions? Basically, the regions are calculated by using this formula, n minus 1 square. N represent the level. So here if you are using 2-level inverter, the 2 minus 1 square, so that is equal to 1. So to calculate the regions exist in every sector, we need to follow this equation. So when we are using the 2-level inverter, we will have only one region in every sector. So here we have only one region. So now when we are using the 2-level inverter, imagine that the V reference is fallen in the sector 1. Imagine that the V reference is falling in the sector 1. So when it is falling in the sector 1, what are the nearest voltage vectors? We need the three nearest voltage vectors to in order to realize the V reference. So here we know the nearest voltage vectors are V1, V2 and the V0 or V7. This V6 and V3 are far away from compared to these two. That's why the nearest voltage vectors are V2 and the V1. So there is a certain procedure to calculate the region numbers, thereby nearest voltage vectors. This is only two level inverter, so we are easily calculating this nearest voltage vectors. But if you go for the higher level, then it is difficult to calculate nearest voltage vector. So there are certain procedure. What are those procedure? The first one is we need to calculate the dwell times. So we need to calculate the dwell times. In the dwell time, first of all, we need to see that sector identification. So in the dwell, for the calculating the dwell times, we need to first identify the in which sector the V reference is fallen. After identifying the sector number, then we need to identify what are the nearest voltage vectors. Then by using the volt second balancing equation, we will calculate the dwell times. So here the first job is identifying a sector. So there is a chance of falling here also V reference. So we need to identify the vector. So here depends upon the angle we are receiving, we can calculate the sector number. So this is the equation we are following for calculating the sector number. K is equal to fix of theta by 60 plus 1. So why we are using this fixed term? This is the MATLAB arithmetic function which is used to rounding the integer value. So there is suppose there is a chance of this V reference is falling nearby this vector. So we cannot know whether this is the sector 1 or sector 2. So this is difficult to identify whether this V reference is fallen in the sector 1 or sector 6. So in order to avoid this confusion, we are using the help of fixed term. So this fixed term makes the, instead of giving 0.8, 0.9, yeah 1.1, it will give you the integer value. So because here we are having a sectors are in the form of integer. So here we need to calculate the dwell times. How we will calculate the dwell times? So here imagine that the V reference is fallen in the sector 1. So this V reference is falling in the sector 1. What are the nearest voltage vectors? Three nearest voltage vectors, that is V1, V2 and the V0. So now by using the volt second balancing equation, we can write the equation that V reference is equal to, by seeing the blue line, the V reference is equal to V1 T1 divided by Ts plus V2 T2 by Ts plus V0 T0 by Ts. That is equal to V reference. So that V reference is this divided by Ts is there. No? So if you common those Ts and if you set left side, then we can get this equation. This is called it as a volt second balancing equation. V reference Ts is equal to V1 T1 plus V2 T2 plus V0 T0. The sampling time Ts is equal to T1 plus T2 plus T0. So this T1, T2 and T0 are the dwell times. So now we need to calculate what is the value of dwell time. So here at the same time we need to get the dwell times. Initially we need to find out the magnitudes, this V1, V2 and the V0. What is the magnitude of the V0? So this is the position of the V0. So magnitude is 0. So here we will have a voltage vector V0 magnitude is 0. Then what about the magnitude of the V1? So this is the magnitude of the V1. So this magnitude we can write it as 2 by 3 VDC. This value will be the 2 by 3 VDC. Then here we have a, this angle is we are having a 0. How we will write? Basically V1 is equal to VDC 2 by 3 VDC e power j0. E power j0. This 0 represent the angle. So here 2 by 3 VDC e power j0. Then if you write in the complex term, 2 by 3 VDC of cos theta plus j sin theta. So angle is 0, cos 0 will be 1. That's why we will get directly V1 is equal to 2 by 3 VDC. And now similarly, what is the magnitude of V2? So now if you write V2, V2 is equal to 2 by 3 VDC e power j. The angle is 60 now. The angle is, this angle will be the 60. So V2 is equal to 2 by 3, this equation. V2 is equal to 2 by 3 VDC of cos 60 plus j sin 60. Now we will write the cos 60 value and the sin 60 value in this equation. Thereby we can get the magnitude of V2. Similarly, what is the V reference? The V reference is equal to cos reference cos theta V reference plus j this green line V reference sin theta. So we will get the V reference. So now substitute this equation number 3 into the equation number 1 and separate the real and imaginary terms. Then here we will get the real term and this is the imaginary term. So now see the equation number 4 and 5. So there are here T1, T2, there are two dwell times. And see the equation number 5, here only we have unknown dwell time of T2. So now here dwell time T2 can be calculated directly. T2 is equal to root 3 times V reference sin theta Ts divided by VDC. By taking calculating T2, substitute T2 here and we can get the T1. From equation 4 and 5, we can calculate T1 and T2. Substitute this T1, T2 values in the equation number 2. Thereby, we can also calculate the T0. So now the dwell times we have calculated T1, T2 and the T0. So this is the dwell times we have calculated in the sector 1. So what about the sector 2 dwell times, sector 3 dwell times? Is there any simplest way? There is no need to calculate again all these mathematical equations. Is there any way to calculate the dwell times easily? Yeah, there is a way. So here we got the dwell times T1 in the sector 1, that is root 3 times V reference by VDC Ts sin of 5 by 3 minus theta. So in place of theta, if you replace theta with this simple equation, theta dash is equal to theta minus of k minus 1 5 by 3, then we can get the dwell times in any sector. So depends upon the theta position. So this is the between the 60 to 120. So like that the theta value is changing and we can get the another sector. So we can calculate the dwell times in any sectors. So all the equations are given at one place for your kind reference. And here while implementing the space vector modulation, there are certain procedures we need to follow. What is that procedure? That is the sampling. In one sampling period, all three phases need to be switched. Imagine one of the leg is not switched on, then we will not get the proper output. So here we need to in one sampling period, all the three switches need to be on. So likewise, a minimum or zero transitions are required. The minimum or zero transition in a switch are required while moving V reference. This V reference from this sector to this sector. Zero or minimum transitions are required while moving this V reference from sector 1 to sector 2. So thereby, by using this condition, we will get the typical 7 segment pattern of voltage source inverter in all 6 sectors is generated likewise. So here we need 3 PI controllers, 2 are inner and 1 is outer. So here the PI speed controller, this is the transfer function of the PI speed controller, and we have got the KPK values using the root locus method with the help of transfer function. And similarly the flux controller, we are using the again a PI controller in the flux controller, and this is the transfer function, and this is the torque controller, and this is of the transfer function. And what is AT is given here. What is AT? These slides will be provided to you end of the day. All the slides will be provided. And this is the gain values of PI speed controller, torque controller, and the flux controllers. we have simulated in the MATLAB. Again, how we have simulated, the simulation blocks are given, and this is the result. So I said in the previous simulation result, remember this result. So here there was a earlier huge ripple content, we cannot say huge, but there are more ripple contents we observed in the director control method, but here you can see the little bit smoother waveform compared to the previous. At the same time, you can see torque transient state also, torque transient state or speed transient state. So there is a smooth curve we have obtained compared to the direct torque control method in the with the space vector modulation. And here you can see the ripple content. These ripple contents are less. And there I used to forgot to mention the voltage drop, speed drop while applying the load torque. So there we observed around 300 to 400 RPM drop while applying the load, but here it was around 1400 RPM only. It means there is a drop of 100. So here this is the line current and this is the line voltage. This is the THD. We have got a voltage of 47.8. The current THD is 15.72. So in the drive application, it is not easy to get less than 5% using the 2-level inverter. So in order to IEEE standard, we need to maintain less than 5%. So to achieve that one, we have used multi-level inverter. So here, what is the advantage of field oriented control method and the direct torque and flux control method and DTC with space vector modulation is given. Whatever drawbacks or disadvantages are available in the FOC and the DTFC is rectified using the DTC with space vector modulation. Why multi-level inverters are required? So as I said, first point for the getting low THD percentage, we are that is a one advantage. One concern why we are going. So here advantage of what is the why we are going for the multi-level converter. Advantage of this approach include high voltage capability and good electromagnetic capability, good power quality and low switching losses. At the same time, lower distortion and lower dV by dt. At the same time, we will get the multiple converters draw input current with very low distortion and can operate with a lower switching frequency also. And we have taxonomy, the different types of multi-level inverters. We have 3 types of multi-level inverters, that is neutral point camped inverter, cascaded and the flyback capacitor. In drive applications, as for my knowledge, I have not seen much papers using the flyback capacitors. Yeah, there was a papers using the cascaded, and there are many papers using the neutral point clamped inverters. But that too different motors, induction motor, BLDC motors, or PMSM motors. So here we have followed initially this neutral point camped inverter. So 2 level, 3 level and 5 level. So what is the drawback of this neutral point camped inverter is that the maintaining the capacitor voltage balancing up to 3 level is fine. 5 level also we can manage, but if you go beyond the 5 level, then it is a little bit problematic by implementing the NPC technique for the drive applications. And in order to avoid the capacitor balance, we can go for the cascaded H bridge manner. There we are applying the individual DC supply. But again, if you implement a higher level of cascaded H bridge, then we need again various DC sources. Number of DC sources also increases. So in every method there is a advantage and the disadvantage also. But what we need exactly, what is our concern, we need to look. So of course every method have pros and cons. So here 3 level inverter fed PMSM drive. Basically there was a one paper who implemented this 3 level inverter, the fellow that is Akagi. So Nobe Akira and Iso Takahashi, at the same time Akagi, in the year of 1981. So this fellow is introduced the 3-level neutral point clamped inverter. So here the 3-level diode clamped inverter. So this is the schematic diagram. So in diode clamped inverter, in every leg, how many switches are required, how many diodes are required, how many clamping capacitors are required. There was a certain procedure, that is, this is a procedure. So in every inverter level of inverter, we need to follow this rule to know the number of switches and the diodes. So here, for producing multi-level AC voltage output, clamping diodes and the DC capacitors are employed along with the conventional circuits. So here, in general, in N-level diode clamped inverter, for each leg, 2 of N-1 switching devices are required. So here we are having a 3-level, 3 minus 1, 2, 2 multiply with 2, 4. So here 4 switching devices are required. Likewise, how many diodes are required? So this is for the diodes, and likewise the capacitors are required. So 3 minus 1, 2, 2 capacitors are required. And here in the 2-level inverter, we have pole voltages of 0.5 VDC, 0, and the minus 0.5 VDC, depends upon the this switching switches on. So here, how we have implemented the space vector modulation for this 3-level inverter. So in the earlier procedure, when we implemented the space vector modulation for the 2-level inverter, I have said some procedure. So initially, we need to identify the sector. Basically, in order to realize the this reference voltage vector, we need a nearby 3 voltage vectors. So in order to identify which are the nearest voltage vector, there are certain procedure. What is those procedure? That is, first we need to calculate the dwell times. In the dwell times, we need to identify the sector. Once the sector is identified, then we need to identify the region where the V reference is fallen. After finding the region, we will calculate the timing calculation in every region. So once dwell times known, we can design the switching pulses. So here our primary job is to calculate the sector. So here the same formula we will follow to identify the sector. Then now coming to the region number. So here in the 2-level inverter, we got only one region. But here when we are going for the 3-level inverter, 3 minus 1 square. So 4 region exist here. So here, in which region is V reference is fallen? So whether delta 1 is region 1, delta 2, delta 3, yeah, delta 4. In which region the V reference is fallen? So in order to identify that, we need to go for other way of representation. So this is that representation. So here, assume that. So here in a particular sampling time, TS, sampling period TS, assume that the reference voltage vector settled in the sector 1. So this is the sector 1. So now for finding the region number, so which region it is fallen, for finding the region number, split the reference voltage vector into 2 components. So now split this V reference into 2 components, that is K1 and the K2. So similar to this one, the component of reference voltage vector on K1, K2 is given as, so now this K1 is equal to the V reference. So this is a certain angle, so that is cos alpha minus 1 by root 3 sin alpha. Yes, similarly, what about K2? So this is the formula for the K2. So we know the 2 components K1 and K2, and here this is the condition. So in the sector 1, where V reference is fallen, to find out that region number, so this is the condition. If K1 is less than 1 by 3, K2 less than 1 by 3, and K1 plus K2 together less than 1 by 3, then imagine that the V reference is fallen in the sector 1. Similarly, if K1 is greater than 1 by 3, then imagine that V reference is fallen in the region 3. So likewise, K2 is greater than 1 by 3, then V reference is fallen in the region 4. So now depends upon this condition, we can get the region number. Once the region number is known, imagine that we know this region. So imagine this region known. So here this is V0, this is V13, this is V14, and this is a V0. So we know the nearest three voltage vectors, right? This is the far away, this is also far away, this is also far away. So we know the nearest voltage vector when it is falling in the region 1. So from this condition, if you assume that we got the region number 1, then we can find out this voltage vector 13, 14 and 0. Now see this space vector diagram. This is 0 and this is V13 and this is V1. Whether the magnitude of the V0 and the V1 is same, or whether the magnitude of the V13 and V1 is same? No, the magnitude of the V13 is different, V1 is different. Similarly, the magnitude of the V7 is different, the magnitude of the V1 is different. So what are those magnitudes? So here there are four ways, we have four different magnitudes we have in this space vector diagram. This is the point of zero vector. So zero vector means zero magnitude, we will get the zero value directly. And this is the small vectors, this is the small vectors, and these are the medium vectors, and this one will be the large vectors. So based on this, here you can see this table. So the zero vectors, we will get the magnitude of 0. Small vectors, which are V13 to V18, we will get the magnitude of the 0.333. And the medium vectors, V7 to V12, we will get the maximum output will be 0.57. Large vector V1 to V6, so that is 0.667. So now here we are imagining that the V reference is fallen in the region 1. So when it is fallen in the region 1, so here the region 1, the nearest voltage vectors are V13, V14 and the V0. So V13, V0, V14. So where it follows, in which magnitude? So in this magnitude it follows. So here V13 magnitude will be 0.33 VDC. So what about V14 magnitude? The V14 magnitude is equal to 0.333 e power j60. E power j60. So for that we need to write the complex equation again to get the V14. So this is the equation. So here we have a V13 magnitude and we know the V14 magnitude, V0 also. By simplifying this equation, we will get those magnitudes, and this is the volt second balancing equation. Now substitute this equation V13, V14, V0 in equation number 3 and extract the real and imaginary values. If you extract the real and imaginary values, the equation number 6 represents the real, 7 is the imaginary. So see the real value, there are two unknowns, TA and the TB, two dwell times unknowns, but the equation number 7 represent only one unknown. So here from the 7 we can get the TB. TB is equal to 2 times of root 3 V reference by VDC sin alpha multiply with TS. So once you are getting TB, substitute into the equation number 6, then we can get the TA. Once you knows the TA and TB, substitute into this equation, that is TS is equal to TA plus TB plus T0, then we can get the T0 also. So in the region 1 of sector 1, we know these are the dwell times, but there are remaining 3 regions are there in the sector 1. So what is how we can calculate the dwell times? So to calculate the dwell times easily in remaining 3 regions of sector 1, then here we know the TA, here alpha is there. If you replace this alpha with this equation, alpha is equal to alpha dash, that is equal to alpha minus of k minus 1 pi by 3, then you can calculate the dwell times in the remaining regions also. In the remaining regions also we can calculate the dwell times. So this is the switching pulse design, how we have designed, and the condition also same. Again, in one sampling time all the switches need to be switch on, and another condition is in the minimum or 0 transistors are required while V reference is moving from sector 1 to sector 2. So this is the schematic diagram of 3-level direct clamped inverter. So this is when we are getting the 0.5 pole voltage of VDC. Upper two switches will be on, and when we are getting minus 0.5 VDC, pole voltage is lower two switches on, and this is 0 voltage we are getting when middle switches are on. So here we have compared torque in 2-level and 3-level, and so this is the results. We have compared 2-level and 3-level. So here this is the line voltage using the 2-level, and this is the line voltage using the 3-level, and you can see the line voltage using the 2-level THD is 47, and 3-level will be the 38.67. Current THD will be 15.72, and using the 3-level is around 4.89. So still it is approximately equivalent to 5%, but it is in the range of acceptable range. So 4.89. And this is a comparison table. So here, while writing any paper, in addition to the simulation results, better try to provide a comparison table, because many of the reviewers, they will see whether is there any direct comparison table, what advantage he is getting from the public this work. So they will come to the directly comparison, they will read the abstract, and they will read this comparison table, and they will see the conclusion. So with these three, maximum reviewer 60 to 70% they will make the their mind on paper. So better try to provide in a comparison way, so that they can get what advantage he is getting from the 3-level inverter. So this is the advantage we are getting with the 3-level inverter compared to 2-level inverter. So now the current THD and voltage THD is less than 5, but it is high. So in order to reduce further, and in order to use for the high voltage applications, we are going for the 5-level inverter. So here again we followed the NPC, neutral point camped inverter only. So here this is a 5-level inverter, and in every leg, how many switches are required? This is the same formula we have followed, and every leg 8 switches are required, 6 clamping diodes are required, and 4 capacitors are required. So this is the switching states. This is the switching states. Depends upon the switching states, how what is the pole voltage we are getting here. That is VDC by 2, and the VDC by 4, 0, minus VDC by 4, and minus VDC by 2. These are the pole voltage. Now the important thing is here we need to implement the space vector modulation for 5-level inverter. Please excuse me for 1 minute. Okay, sorry for the interruption. So now how we will implement the space vector modulation for this multi-level inverter more than 3-level, like 5-level inverter. So here you can read out this point. Here for a 5-level inverter, there are 125 switching states in its space vector diagram, n power 3. So 5 power 3, 125 switching states are there. Switching states are there in its space vector diagram. At this, that is, see here. So the 125 switching states are there. And the second difficulty is, in every space vector diagram consists of 6 sector. It is same in every level. Each sector is phase displaced by 60. It is also same, and each sector consists of 16 triangular regions. That is n minus 1 square, 5 minus 1, 4 square, 16. Here in the 5-level inverter, we will have a 16 triangular regions. The switching states for 5-level inverter are complicated, since every triangular has numerous switching states. How? We will see. So see here, this is the point. This is the point. See how many vectors are there. So 3 different vectors are there. So in these 3 different vectors, which one is the nearest? If V reference is fallen here, which one is nearest in among these 3? So identification of this and the selection and utilization of these switching states are complicated. So as the number of levels in an inverter is more than 3 level, then it is very difficult to select the 3 nearest voltage neighboring voltage vector in order to realize the reference voltage vector. So as I said here, so now it is following here. Here also we have 3 vectors. Here also we have a 3 vectors. Here also we have a 3 vectors. Among 3, 3, 3, which one is the nearest? We need only 3, but there are 9. So this is the difficulty we are getting. Space vector diagram, and this this line is represent the 3 level, and here this yellow line is represent for the 2 level. This 5 level inverter space vector diagram we are converting into the 2 level inverter with some manipulation. So how we have calculated the dwell times in order to realize the nearest 3 reference voltage vector. In order to realize the V reference, 3 nearby voltage vectors are required. So there is a certain procedure, as I said earlier. First one is the dwell time calculation, and then sector identification, region, and the timing calculation. And using this dwell times, we can design the pulses. So this equation will be same. So now here, if you see this one, so here imagine that V reference is fallen in this region. So now let us assume there are 3 lines. Let us assume 3 lines. One line will be the K2, another line will be the K1, and another line will be the K3. Let us assume 3 lines whose slopes are passing through the end tip of the V reference. Let us assume 3 lines, 3 slopes whose tips are passing through the end tip of the V reference, and their values will be this one, minus root 3 and the 0. Here the K1 and the K2 are the alpha intercept values, and the K3 dash will be the beta intercept value. Now here we have represented this phasor diagram in terms of alpha and beta. So this alpha and beta we can represent V alpha, and this is the V beta. Let us consider V alpha and V beta are the coordinate of the V reference in alpha beta plane. So this is the alpha beta plane, this is a V reference. So let's take it as a V alpha and the V beta. Now we have K1 dash, K2 dash, and the K3 dash. So what is the equation for the K1 dash? What is the magnitude? The K1 dash is equal to, this is the K1 dash. K1 dash is equal to V alpha plus 1 by root 3 V beta. What about the K2 dash? K2 dash is equal to V alpha minus 1 by root 3 V beta. And the K3 dash is equal to, this is the plane of V beta. So K3 dash is equal to V beta. So now this K1 dash, K2 dash, and the K3 dash, we are using to locate the V reference vector in order to identify the region number. So here there are 16 regions we have. So now there is a chance of getting this region, but here there is a chance of getting the non-integer values while using what is the value of K1 and K2 and the K3. So here we need to get integer value. So to get the integer value, what we are doing, here we have the equation of K1 dash, K2 dash, and K3 dash. We are scaling the scale that K1 dash, K2 dash, and K3 dash like K1, K2, and the K3. So this K1 is equal to fix of K1 dash by H. K2 is equal to fix of K2 dash by H, because this fixed term we are using to get the integer value. So what is H here? So here H is the scaling factor, that is H is equal to Vm by n minus 1. So here we have the K is equal to 0.866 by Vm by n minus 1. So Vm is equal to 2 by 3 VDC. So now here you can see the region number. The region number we can find out from the formula delta J is equal to 7 K1 minus K1 square plus K2 plus K3. So by using this equation, we can identify the region number. So this K1, K2 and the K3 we are getting from these three equations. So if you substitute this K1, K2, K3 in this equation, it will give you the region number. So now, so imagine that V reference is fallen in this particular region. When V reference is fallen in this particular region, so how we will calculate the dwell times? So now when this V reference is fallen in this region, what we will do? So this is in the plane of alpha beta. This is in the plane of alpha beta, and then coordinates are V alpha and the V beta of this V reference. Now this origin we identified, this is the region we identified. Now what we will do, we will shift this origin from this point to this point. Now we will shift this origin from this point to this point. When we are shifting this origin from this point to this point, now we will have a new coordinates. That new coordinates are V alpha beta 0 and V alpha 0 and V beta 0. We will earlier, when this V reference origin is this, we will have a coordinates of V alpha when V beta. Now we identified the region is this delta 9, then we will shift V0 from this point to this point, and the new coordinates will be V alpha 0 and the V beta 0. Once identifying new coordinates, now this all values, this triangular is represented similar to this one. So here you can see this is the V alpha 0, this is V alpha 0, V beta 0, when we have identified the region number. So for all sectors, we will make this all 9 regions are replaced with the single region by stating the new coordinates are V alpha 0 and this is the V beta 0. So now here, similar for remaining sectors also, we will make likewise only. So see this one, this is the space vector diagram for the 5-level inverter, and this is the space vector diagram for the 2-level inverter. So here, by using the same concept, we can the 5-level inverter space vector diagram is simplified similar to the 2-level space vector modulation. Now here, V reference is fallen in this region. The nearest voltage vectors are V1, V2, V0. Earlier, what is the V1? V1 is equal to 1, 0, 0. But now, what is the V1? V1 is equal to H comma 0. V2 is equal to 1 by 2 H comma K. So now, this is a volt second balancing equation for the 2-level inverter. So what is the V1? V1 is equal to V1 of H, that is 1, 0, 0. So here, when it is fallen in this region, find out the V1, V2, V0, then substitute that V1, V2, V0 in this equation and subtract the real and imaginary terms, then we will get this is the real and this is the imaginary one. So here real purpose V1 plus V2 plus V0. What is V1? That is H, plus what is the V2? That is 1 by 2 H. So here 1 by 2, sorry, H by 2. So 1 by 2 H or H by 2 both are same. So here H plus H TA plus H by 2 TB. This is the real term, imaginary term. So here we will get the unknown dwell time TB and substitute here we will get the TA. By knowing TA and TB, substitute here we will get the T0 also. So here we are getting the dwell times in the sector 1. So these are the dwell times in the sector 1. So similarly, there are remaining 6 sectors we have. So these 6 sectors dwell times we can get from this equation. So similar way we have obtained remaining 6 sectors dwell times. So this is the 5-level direct clamped inverter schematic diagram, and when we will get the 0.5 VDC, upper switches, 4 switches are on, and this remaining this switches when on, we will get the 0.25 VDC, and this we will middle switches on, 0 VDC will get, and this is the minus 0.25 VDC, and the lower switches, when 4 lower switches are on, minus 0.5 VDC, and this is the simulation result for the 5 level and the 3 level. So here you we may not identify exactly, but there is a torque ripple content difference is there. If you can zoom, then we can identify that one. So here it is shown in the zoomed manner. So here you can see the difference, and so here 3 level line voltage and 5 level line voltages, and the phase voltage is also given here, and the current THD and voltage THD using 3 level 38 and 2 level is voltage THD is 20.98, current THD is 4.89, current THD using 5 level is 2.25. So here comparison between the 3 level and 5 level. So the difference is clearly shown here. So this is using the 5 level inverters. So up to how many levels, there may be a question from the audience also, but I am clarifying here only. Up to how many levels we can go? So here, if you go more than 5 level, then the identification of voltage vector problem you will get. So it will be very difficult to implement more than 5 level inverters for the drive applications, but still some papers we can find. So this is the my suggestion. When we are going for the higher level, we will face the little difficulty, and with the NPC definitely we will face the difficulty of the capacitor unbalancing. This is about the sensorless PMSM drive. This topic I will not cover because there is a particular session on this sensorless controllers for the drives. So why we need a sensorless speed controllers or sensorless another current controllers like less sensors. So there is a one session is there. Dr. Giribabu from the MNIT Bhopal will take one session on this. So, but I will tell you the overview why people are going for the sensorless. That is in order to reduce the cost, at the same time to get the reliability and to get the more performance. And of course, imagine we have a less space, but we need to insert our motor. So when we are thinking to insert the motor, there some speed sensor will take some space which we mount on the shaft. So that space we need again extra. So that is also one of the problem when we are keeping in hazardous environment. We may not able to keep these sensors, and at the same time in some environmental conditions, not in good condition, we may not get the proper result from the feedback signal from the sensor. So those descriptions here given here, but this will be covered by the Dr. Giribabu sir in upcoming